In this edition of Locked On Capitals, your Washington Capitals destroy the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's talk about that game next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen or view of the day. Yes, this podcast is also available in video form, so head on over to YouTube and check it out. And when you're on YouTube, make sure and hit that subscribe button. And if you like the videos, give it a thumbs up or leave some comments. It really helps grow the channel. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, your Washington Capitals destroy the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 6-2. It wasn't even really that close. We'll talk about that in the show. Then we will talk about the amazing play of Darcy Kuemper. Yes, he gets a lot of grief for some reason out there that people don't think he plays consistently. You should probably look at his statistics. We'll talk about that in the show. And then we will talk about the standout game of TJ Oshie. I've said it in this podcast many times before. The Capitals play that much better when TJ Oshie is in the lineup. But just to get it going here, your Capitals do in fact take down the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 6-2. This was a game that saw goals by Nicholas Aube-Kubel, Alex Ovechkin, Garnet Hathaway, 2 from TJ Oshie, and 1 from Martin Feravari. Darcy Kuemper was in fact dialed in as he saved 25 of 27 shots. Now, this is a Columbus Blue Jackets team that's in a bit of a similar position to the Capitals. They are facing a myriad of injuries, most notably on their blue line. Do I think that they were as bad as they were on the ice tonight? No. Do I think that they have pretty good net minding? It's not too bad. Elvis Merzlikins is actually revered as one of the better netminders. He has been in previous seasons. I just don't think that ultimately he has the best defense playing in front of him. So I do think that the Blue Jackets are a few years out from being contenders, but it's a similar position to what the Capitals are in, where they're facing a lot of injuries. They're going to be better, much improved once they get a lot of their key pieces back, most notably on the blue line. But to get it going here tonight, Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey gets the Blue Jackets on the board to make it 1-0. And you got to think that when Johnny Gaudreau signed up to play for the Blue Jackets after leaving the Flames, if he knew that the Blue Jackets were going to be as bad as they are this year, would he still have signed here? I still don't really buy his reasons for why he wanted to come to Columbus. No disrespect to people that live in Columbus, but the argument always was that he wanted to move out to the East Coast. And if you're a fan of geography, you realize that Ohio and the New Jersey area aren't exactly a hop, skip, and a jump apart from each other. Now, I understand he's a multimillionaire and can probably fly there anytime he wants. But you got to think, for me, as a fan of the NHL, and, kind of an odd move for him to move from the Flames, who the Flames are a better team than the Blue Jackets, to go to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have been abysmal the entire year. But Johnny Gaudreau, it does, in fact, get the Blue Jackets on the board first. Nick Dowd was out of the game. It's not ideal. He's on that shutdown line with Garnet Hathaway and Alexi Protas. But it was for a good reason. His wife and him had a baby, so it was a good thing. And congratulations goes out to Nick Dowd and his wife. It was a good opportunity. Also, Alex Alexiev and Nicholas Aube-Kubel were in the game. Again, Kuemper in the net. The Caps were dialed in. And I got to say that I think that Darcy Kuemper was a little shaky at first, but he kind of refocused himself and ended up playing a really good hockey game, all things considered. And if you don't believe it, just take a look at the statistics. He saved 25 of 27 shots. You really can't ask for a heck of a lot more out of him than that. The Caps kept going. Jensen to Oshie goal 1-1. That's what I'm talking about. Oshie, the playmaker, he always just seems to be in the right spot when he's out there. Then Nicholas Abe-Kubel picks up the loose puck and scores a great goal, makes it 2-1 Caps. This is what I'm talking about. Sonny Milano, who was picked up off that PTO from the Calgary Flames, and then you take a look at Nicholas Abe-Kubel, who was picked up from the Toronto Maple Leafs for whatever reason, just didn't work out in Toronto. Two solid acquisitions. Bargain shopping for Brian McClellan. He didn't have to give up the family farm to get those players on the team. Did it bargain shopping and have contributed also much. The thing about Nicholas Abe-Kubel, I'm probably going to say, is that he might be one of the odd guys out when Backstrom or Wilson returns. I don't know if that's the case. I guess if he continues to play as well as he has played, maybe he will find a role and continue to play on this team. But he's really going to have to apply himself if he wants to maintain a role on this team. But for tonight, I do think that Nicholas Abe-Kubel played well. Jensen coughs up the puck and gives up a goal to Bayreuther to make it 2-2. And if you watch the game out there tonight, Bayreuther had 2 goals, except for the second one was washed out because I believe they said it was a high stick, but in any event, it got washed out. A name I'm not too familiar with, I got to be honest with you, but he ended up playing pretty well. A bright spot on the Columbus Blue Jackets team, to be sure. And then there was a fortuitous bounce for Strome to make it 3-2, except not so fast. They ended up giving that goal to Martin Faravari. And then Anthony Mantha kind of playing and proving his worth on the team behind the net, feeds the puck to Garnet Hathaway. Goal 4-2. The Caps are humming along. And then, as I talked about, Bayreuther's second goal was washed out. And then Oshie proving his value to this team. Oshie's second goal of the night on the power play. The Caps play so much better. It's not really disputable. When he's out there, he puts himself in the right spot to score goals. He did it again tonight. I am all team TJ Oshie. The Caps do, in fact, always play better when he's on the team. And then the big thing out there tonight, Ovechkin goal, 29th goal, makes it 6-2 with some good deception by Dylan Strome. And what do I mean when I say that? The camera kind of panned up to him pretty close, and he was kind of doing head fakes and looking his eyes in a different direction. And then he feeds it to Ovechkin and goal. It's good. Ovechkin out there doing what he does best. And what does he do best? Score goals, of course. Are you not a fan of hockey? Just really a great game for Alex Ovechkin as well. The Capitals' 9-point streak is their longest since opening the 2021 season. Last time they hit 10 when they went 13 straight games in the 19 and 20 season at 11-0-2. The Capitals scored 4 goals in the second period and never looked back. So I don't know if there was some sort of come to Jesus moment or whatever was the case going on during after the first period there. But in any case, the Capitals were dialed in the second period and just played an amazing game out there. That is to be sure. Well, the big thing is we hope that they can continue to keep this going forward. During the streak, which began on December 5th at Edmonton, Washington has outscored opponents 32-12. In addition, Washington has converted on 8 of its 18 power play opportunities and have killed off 19 of 22 opposing power play opportunities. That's 86.4%. Washington has allowed 2.81 goals against on the road this season, the 7th lowest rate in the NHL. So just think about that. Has allowed 2.81 goals against per game on the road this season. Again, this Capitals team always plays that much better on the road. Why is that? I guess I don't really know. You always hear the thing out there, the adage, home cooking. This team plays better at home. The Capitals like it on the road. Since November 23rd, the Capitals have scored 16 power play goals on 57 opportunities during that span. Washington's 28.1 power play percentage ranks tied for 6th in the NHL. Forward Evgeny Kuznetsov has recorded 20 points, 3 goals, 17 assists in his last 16 games dating back to December 3rd. And then Darcy Kuemper doing what he does best. I don't know why there's so much negativity aimed at him, but for whatever reason, he gets a lot of negativity in that last game that they lost. Everyone's like, well, they should have gone with Charlie Lindgren. again, it's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking to say that kind of stuff. Darcy Kuemper has posted a record of 6-0-3 with 2 shutouts and a 2.16 goals against average and a .929 save percentage in his last 10 starts dating back to November 23rd. Just think about that. Why the hate? Darcy Kuemper is playing great. The Capitals improved to 5-2-1 against Metro Division opponents this season. Washington has earned at least 1 point in 6 of their 8 games. The Caps defense has combined for 24 goals this season, which is tied for the second highest in the NHL. The Islanders have 25, and the Arizona Coyotes have 24. That seems like kind of an odd thing for them anyway, for me. Alex Ovechkin scores his 29th goal of the season on the power play to extend the Capitals' lead to 6-2 with the goal. Ovechkin passed Teemu Selanne for the 16th most points in NHL history. That is what I'm talking about. Everyone that's, hears about Ovechkin, they're like, how's it going? Chasing down Gretzky. It's not even that. He is passing all these milestones on a nightly basis, and he does yet another one tonight. All right, so after the break here, we will talk about the great play of TJ Oshie. We'll talk about the great play of Darcy Kuemper. We'll talk about that next. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fats and calorie? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got the thing for you. You gotta try a Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around for a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to the nearest Walmart or walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen every day. Now check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft, plus NHL draft rankings and top prospect comparisons for every team. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you find your podcast. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this episode, we are talking about your Capitals as they destroy the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I know it's not against a great team, but the Capitals found a way to win a great game against a struggling team. And the Capitals have to stockpile wins any way they can get them. TJ Oshie scores his second goal of the game and the power play to extend the Capitals lead to 5-2. TJ Oshie is one of those players that you can draw lines to with the success of this team. Oftentimes people ask, well, when did the fortunes of the Capitals change? I would say that you can say the defense really stepped up. They became dialed in. They were buying into what the coaches are telling them. That was the improvement. TJ Oshie even said as much as he said that he noticed the defense was playing better. But it's even more than that for me. It's the play of TJ Oshie. And what is it about TJ that makes him such a great player out there? Is he's a great player. Do you notice, like in the game tonight, he's always just in the right spot to score a great goal. He's not, in the corner, not in the right position. He always seems to be net front, ready to score a goal, and he delivers tonight. That's what the Capitals are hoping for going forward, is to continue to see that production from TJ Oshie, because as we know, this team is facing a lot of injuries, and they're playing better as of right now, but they need to continue to play better if they want to fight for their playoff life. And they can do that with the likes of TJ Oshie and some of the other players that are out there. I do think the Capitals will ultimately be better, of course, when Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom are in the lineup. But for me, having someone like Oshie and players like him out there, the Caps just statistically always play better. And that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to keep on building on their wins going forward. The schedule doesn't get any easier as you go forward. I know that there's a bit of a lull now, and the schedule kind of lets up. The Caps had a really kind of tough schedule there for a while. They were playing a lot of games on the road. They came back from a long road trip, and then you saw Oshie in the lineup and out of the lineup, and now he's back in the lineup. I guess one of the things I would say about him is, kind of maybe reel it in at times. Oftentimes he tries to take on some of the biggest guys on the ice, and to his detriment, he ends up getting injured. The Caps do need playmakers like him on the ice, the architects, if you will, of the plays to help the Caps keep winning in their winning ways, because if you take a look at it with a lot of the players that have been out of the lineup, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty with certain players on the team. Oftentimes you have some AHL players that are plugged in there that maybe don't necessarily know the plays as well as some of the veteran players. The one thing that's advantageous for this Capitals team is it is a veteran-laden core. And oftentimes people try to think of that as a pejorative, or they try to think of that as a negative thing. I think of that as a positive thing for this Capitals team. This is a team that is loaded with leaders. And it's not just Oshie, it's Backstrom and Wilson and Carlson when he's in there. There is just experience just oozing out of this team. And if you think that they could just harness that and continue with that, I think the Capitals will be in a good position to do great things going forward. But they're going to have to do it. Everyone's going to have to buy in. The biggest thing that was mentioned was when Peter Laviolette talked about that he had that meeting with the players, kind of holding them accountable, saying that we demand more from you out on the ice. And they're buying into what he's selling, and as they should. Peter Laviolette is the winningest U.S.-born coach. And they do have that leadership core on this team. They just need to keep going in that direction if they want to end up achieving their objective, and that is making it to the postseason. I do think the Capitals are headed in the right direction. All right, so after the break here, we will talk about the great game of Darcy Kuemper. It's not really that surprising, but I feel like I need to talk about him a little bit more, as people seem to be kind of on the fence if he's the right fit in Washington. We'll talk about him next. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this next segment here, we will talk about the great play of Darcy Kuemper, the number one netminder in the Washington Capitals organization. That's not hearsay, that's not speculative. He was signed to be the starter in Washington. He is the goalie number one on the team. And like I talked about in the first segment there, his statistics speak for himself. For themselves. He has played so well on this team so far. There was some talk when he first came to this team if he was going to gel. A lot of people said, well, he's a good goalie, but he did that in front of the Avalanche defenseman. But he has continued to be dialed in on the Capitals. Darcy Kuemper has posted a record 6-0-3 with 2 shutouts, a 2.16 goals against average, and a .929 save percentage in his last 10 starts. Does that sound like a mediocre goalie to you? That sounds like a goalie that I think a lot of other teams would like to have. Tonight, he saved 25 of 27. That is good for a .926 save percentage. Now, I'm not trying to say anything disparaging about Charlie Lindgren. I do think he is a great goalie as well. Obviously, when Darcy Kuemper was out, when he was injured, he saved the team. Charlie Lindgren saved the team. If it wasn't for Chucky out there, I think the Capitals season would have been done by now, because if they struggled like they did last season, or the last 2 seasons, shall we say, with Samsonov and Vanacek, the season could have been done. The saving grace of this team this year is their net minding. There's no doubt about it. And it was Darcy when he's in there, but Charlie Lindgren, when Darcy was injured, that is the best of both worlds, is to have 2 great goaltenders. I would say that Charlie Lindgren would be a good starter, not even just a backup goalie, but a great starter on most any NHL team out there. And the Capitals have him as a backup. So just a really great position for the Capitals to be in. And it's just stockpiled down there too. The Capitals have always had good luck drafting and signing goaltenders. If you think back to Holtby and Grubauer and Fucale and Hunter Shepard and Garen Bjorklund, and the list just goes on and on of all the different Clay Stevenson. The pipeline for the Capitals goaltending is deep, and it is being led by Darcy Kuemper. Make no mistake about it. They are paying him a starter's wage. He is the number one netminder. Now, I will say if the Capitals were wise, if they could learn anything from things they've learned in previous years, is to split the workload a little bit. You don't have to get so hung up on titles that he's our number one netminder. He is the number one netminder, but if you could still split the load a little bit more, I know it's always a good thing to say to kind of go with a hot hand. I know that some people, and I even thought for a while, that maybe they should continue to go with Charlie Lindgren, but there is a reason that Brian McClellan went out there and signed Darcy Kuemper as the number one netminder. Make no mistake about it. He believes in him. I believe in him, and the Capitals organization, the fans should as well, as that he is the number one netminder on this team as they hope to make a push into the playoffs. And my hope for this team is that they can make it past the first round and try to get another cup for Ovi while they still have him on the team before he retires ultimately. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. All right, once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. I do feel positive about this team going forward. It's important not to get too caught up in, small losses here and there. The Capitals are beginning to string together victories. And if you take a look at their record in December alone, just to be positive going forward as I end this podcast, just think about where this team is now compared to where they were in October, in November. The arrow is pointing up. The Capitals are in a good position. All right, I'll talk to you guys again next time. Thanks for listening.